Okay, so today is a continuation of layers. Yesterday, I kind of laid the groundwork, and in the shotgun presentation, I gave you my take on layers and what I do with them and how I organize my files and that sort of thing by using layers. Today, we're going to do the lesson in the book. And from my perspective, it's a little awkward because they have created a file, and now we're going backwards and we're trying to organize it in layers. Typically, you do it just the opposite. As you're building your illustration, you organize it in layers, and that helps you to do just that. Keep it organized and neat and tidy so that you can find things and easily, and that you can also present the artwork in a very kind of orderly and professional manner. Anyway, this is what what we're doing is we're designing an interface. Looks like for web design on a phone. And anyway, they've made all the artwork for us with 2 artboards. And if we look at the layers panel, and I'll assume that you guys that we've gone over all these parts yesterday, but we're gonna, in the layers panel, but we're gonna talk about it a bit more, is they've broken it down into just 2 layers. If we look at the phone, let's pull this over a little bit. The phone content has most of all the artwork in it, and it's broken down into sub-layers and groups and clipping masks and all sorts of things. And then we have at the bottom here, we have the template layer, which involves the back and the front. That's what these guys are here. Okay, so this is what it looks like when it's done. And we're going to go ahead and I'm going to switch to the start file. So this has all the same elements in it, but they just need to be moved around and reorganized. And I said this is done in a very kind of awkward fashion. We just have 1 layer at the moment. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you different ways of adding layers, sub-layers, and rearranging layers and moving layers and that sort of thing to get all of this put together. So to start with, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to add a brand new layer. So to add a layer, you use this little button right here. And like everything else in Illustrator, it immediately puts it on top of everything else. The next thing that I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and rename the layers. So to do that, you double click on the text itself, and the top layer, let's see, I want it to be, well, the bottom layer, let's go ahead. This is going to be a little awkward for me today. I want this to be phone body. And the top layer is supposed to be phone, let's see, phone content. Okay. And then a couple of other ways of making layers is that if I want, I can hold down the Option key and click on here, and it brings up the dialog box. So the next one, the layer that we're going to have, we can name it here. You can decide if you want to show the layer, if you want to turn it into a template, if you want to lock it, print it, do whatever. The next one is going to be the menu icons. So that's what we're going to have here. It's important that they're in the right order to do this lesson. So we have that. So that's one way of making it. It's very similar to just clicking here on the new layer button. Another one is that if I want to duplicate a layer, I can do that in a couple of different ways. I can select the layer and I can come up here and I can say duplicate menu icons. That's the name of the layer. That's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is to click on the layer here and drag it onto the new layer. And that will create a duplicate. Now what I want to do is I want to rename it. So it's going to be design content. That's what I want here. Okay. Now you'll notice that since I duplicated these layers, these have the same color here, and they will for a little while. We talked about that yesterday, about how each layer is color coded. Okay, and that will change throughout. So next step now is to create, we're going to create a sub-layer. So what I want to do is I'm going to create phone content, select phone content, because right now it's just, there's nothing on that layer, but I'm going to, in advance, I'm going to create a sub-layer. Now, would you normally know to do this when you're building an illustration? No. It's only as you're building the illustration that you realize that, you know, maybe a sub-layer would be better than a group or something like that to help you organize it. So I'm going to click on this little button right here with phone content selected. And notice that that creates a little indented layer here. It says layer 5. And I want the name of the sub-layer to be, I have to look and make sure that I have it right. I guess I leave it as is for the time being. So that's our sub-layer. Okay, so let me go ahead and click the little twirly here, close it, and I've got all of my elements. Now you can see that when there's additional content within a layer, you have this, I call it a twirly, that you twirl it down and you see all the additional content. Okie doke. The next thing that they want us to do, those are various ways of adding layers and sublayers, is that let's say you have a lot of content and you want to be able to find, you know, where it is in a particular layer. So if I click, for example, this bottom content here. Oh, let me stop for a second. There's one thing that I forgot. I don't know how many of you have started this lesson yet, but when you open up the start file, it's going to ask you, you'll be missing a couple of fonts. And, you know, do you want to activate them? I don't have access to the fonts that they have requested. So in their place, I just used Helvetica. And that's something that if you don't have access to those additional fonts and you're following the textbook, that's something that you might want to do, is just use a substitute. And Helvetica for this lesson works just fine. Anyway, back to the lesson. I forgot, that was at the very start. So with this little category selected right down here, that maybe I want to name this. In this particular case, we named description. But I want to know, and as soon as I select it, I know that it's in the phone body, but I want to know precisely where it is in all of that stack of layers. So if I click the little locate object button here, it shows me that that's where this is. It's contained within a group, and within that group, we have here stunning new, and you can see that typically text is named automatically by the content of the text. But instead, I'm going to rename it here and just name it description. Okay. And click off of it, and we're done. So there we go. We've located that layer. Another way that we can locate and we can begin moving content is that what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this group right here. And with this selected, let's go ahead and close this for a minute. And you can see that again, once this group is selected, I can go ahead and I can look here to see what's selected here. And I have this particular group. Okay. I want to move And again, I have to check. What they want us to do is I need to select just the what I had before, my mistake. I'm just going to go ahead and select the description. No, let me pause this for a second. I'm going to pause the recording. Okay, so let me close all these up for a second here. We can see our 4 layers. I'm going to go ahead and select this so it shows that I have this content here. Well, one way to move this into the design content is to simply click and drag that up to here. Now you'll notice that that was empty before, and now it has that group that was selected. That's inside that. I can also take the phone body as well and select down here. And what they want us to do now is we're going to select a group of objects here. We're going to, let me click that back up here. And I want to select the group, this group, and I'm going to hold down the Shift key and select these all the way down to the image. Okay, those 3. And now what I can do, another way to move that up to design content is with all of those 3 layers selected, or sub-layers, I should say, selected, I'm going to click and drag and move those up to design content. So again, I'll close phone body, I'll open up design content, and you can see how these now have been added to that in the same order as before. Actually, these others have been placed on top. Okay, so next step. Different ways of viewing layers. That can be sort of interesting. Let me go ahead and deselect this. Over to the left, you need to switch now?
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay, hold on.
Thank you.
Let me go ahead here. I need to break myself. This is such a weird lesson. It's just done very strangely. Look at the panelists, and I need to take and go ahead and spotlight Bernice. Okay, now you're spotlighted. Okay, so you may not be aware of it, but there are items, the way that they've set this up, that are hidden, that are in here. And a quick way of discovering that, I mean, you can always hit Command Y. Whoops, let me make sure that this is selected. There we go. Command Y, and that puts everything in outline mode. And if I hit Command Y, that turns it back. You can also do that from the Layers panel. So what I can do here is that if I want to see design content in its outline form, actually, they don't want. I want to select the body phone. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to, if I hold down the Command key and I click on here, whoops, there we go. It should show it in outline form. Let me hold down the Option key. There we go. So let me do that again. If I go ahead and I hold down the Command key, and I click, it shows everything in outline form. And you can see this underlying series of buttons here that were hidden underneath that I can now select and I can move if I wish. Okay, so I can go ahead and I can click that group and I can move them up, or move them, in fact, to what I want, to the menu icons. That's where we're going to move that. Now they suggest that we copy and paste into that. I find it easier just to simply take that element and click and drag it and move it into the menu icons. So let me do that again. If I hold down the Option key and I click, no, that does everything. There we go, Command click. Command click, I rarely use this. Command click places all of the layers in outline form. If you hit Command click again, then it reveals them in preview mode. The other one is option on this. And what it does is it will take, and it will hide everything except that layer. So for example, if I wanted to hide all of the design content except for what I see here, if I hold down the option key and I click, notice how that background element went away. And if I click again with the option key held down, it brings it back. So what I wanted to do is, let me try again. I'm going to go ahead and hold with the bottom layer selected. I'm going to hold down the command key and click. Come on, wrong layer, top layer, command key. There we go. So now I can select this element here. Now I'm going to go ahead and just move it up to the menu icons. Okay, so that's all I've done. Being able to select things and view them in a different way than before, and then move them to a better location is all I've done here. Okay. Next step. Got viewing layers. Let me go ahead, and these are all hidden. Let's go ahead and deselect. But again, if I were to hold down the option key and click on here, notice that that's the only thing that's visible now, because that's the only thing on that layer. Hold down the option key and click, and that brings everything back. Let's go ahead and option click again. No. There we go. Bring them all back. Okie doke. We got those back. So now the next step is to reorder some layers here. And again, we've already done a little bit of that, but we're going to do that a little bit more extensively. So what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to twirl down on design content here. And what I want to do is I want to select the image, and I want it to, number one, I want to send it to the bottom of the layer. I can either just simply select object arrange. Oops, let's select here. Let's go back here. Image, but object, that's not allowing me to select. So I'm just going to go ahead and drag it to the bottom of our group here. There, so it's at the bottom of the stack. Normally you should be able to select object arrange, send to the back. Let me move that back up again. It doesn't matter where it is. Let's put it back up here. I can also go from over here, and I should be able to send it to the back as well. Can I? No, I guess not. Okay, so I'm just going to click and drag on it and bring it to the bottom of the layer. So I've rearranged them a little bit. Now I can take the image and I can drag it over. That's what they want us to do, is to bring this image over a little bit. I'm going to hold down the shift key to constrain that just a little bit. And this is in a very awkward, from my perspective, kind of an awkward position. Normally, I mean, I don't like these things hanging out that way. I would put them in a clipping mask early on, or fill them in a shape. Anyway, this is the way that they've done the lesson. So we have that. So the next thing that we're going to do is I'm going to take another way of doing that is, let's close this up a little bit. And what I want to do is I want to take both the design content, and I'm going to take the menu content. So I hold down the shift key to select that. And now I'm going to take both of these layers and put them within the phone content. Okay, I'm going to take that now that I've reorganized it. And you have to make sure that it's highlighted like that in blue. If you go under, notice that there's a blue line beneath or a blue line above. That just means that you're going to move it to above or below that layer. But if I want to actually put it inside the layer, then I'd use that. And now you can see inside the phone content, I have design content, I have the menu items, and I have layer 5. Okay, that was a sub layer inside there. I may have goofed this up a little bit, but we'll see. I'll go do my best to make the correction here. Okay, so the next step is, as I said, is to move. Let me go ahead and I'm going to pause my recording for a minute. Make sure that I'm in the right place here. Okay, so the next thing that they want us to do, this layer 5, which was supposed to be a sub layer, is hanging out here, and so I goofed up somewhere along here, get it the way they wanted it. But what we're going to do is we're going to select this item, and you can see that that's selected in the phone body. And I want to select the phone, the path directly above it as well, so I can hold down the Shift key and select it. There you go. So I have this little widget and this one here selected. Okay, they're both of these paths are selected. Now what I can do, I could have grouped these together before. I prefer groups, but instead what they want us to do is to collect in a new layer, which is basically a sub-layer, just another way of doing that. So now we can call this one front. Okay. And then I can duplicate that by clicking and dragging here. Now I have a copy of it, and I'll name this one back. Okay. Again, different ways of approaching this. So now we have duplicates of this. And now what I want to do is I'm going to close the layers for a minute, and I'm going to select the artboards, and I'm going to select the back artboard here. And with the back artboard selected, I can now go back, and if I want to bring these little elements over here in a very efficient way, and this is a good thing that they've done here, I can go back to layers, go ahead and make sure that the back is selected. Okay, so the back is selected, but remember, this artboard needs to be selected first. Then I can come up here to the top, or if I don't have it available here, I can, what I want to do is I want it to be aligned along horizontal center. If I click that, notice that it comes out over here in the new artboard. Now, maybe I didn't, oh, see, I didn't bring that other path in there. So I need to do that. So I'm going to go ahead, let me go ahead and put this inside this here, like so. And I'm going to make a copy of it. So I'll just go ahead and make a copy of both of these by dragging there. And now I'm going to take one of these and put it in the back. So if I look at these, there we go. So it's easy enough, once you discover you've made a mistake here, I can go ahead now and I can select the back again. And let's go ahead and maybe I have duplicates here. I don't mean to. So it looks like, yeah, I accidentally used the wrong ones. I wanted to duplicate. Let me take this one, since this is a duplicate, and I'm going to throw it in the trash. There we go. Now I'll take this one, and I wanted to duplicate the circle. There, well, now we have the circle, and now I can move it within that back group. So there we have it. And you can always change the order of them. You can move it down, like so. And the same thing here. Just, if you feel more comfortable in a certain order, then that's how they are. So I can close the front. I can select the back. And now this one, I'm going to go ahead And I'm going to take this one here. I'm going to take, yeah, I'm really messing this up. So let's go ahead and take this one here. And I'm going to move it back over here. So I need to, you know, as I'm messing up here, I got to clean it up. So I'm going to go back and select this one. And I'm going to put this one back over here. Now it's back over there. So I've kind of fixed my mistake. So I'd like to say that sometimes making mistakes for all of you is helpful, because then what I can do is that I can come back here and I can show you how I repair them. So let's go back to layers.
I'm sorry, Professor, can you switch interpreters again?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bernice, you need to be highlighted, right?
Brooke.
Huh?
Brooke.
Oh, Brooke needs to
Brooke.
be. Okay. Okay. Okay, you should be highlighted now. Okie doke. So once again, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I have both of those targeted now. Both of them have been in the back or selected. And I'll try it again. I'll just go ahead and with the back artboard selected, I should be able to click here. And now that's what I wanted. Both of them have been moved over. Again, it doesn't take much to slip up, you know, and I'm trying to walk and chew gum at the same time and figure all of this out for all of you as I'm talking about it. So we've duplicated, what else are we going to do here? So we moved, we're going to take the sub layer here. We have another phone layer here. So let's close the phone body. It's easier sometimes if you make sure that you close all of these. So I'm going to look at the phone body and I'm going to look at the path down here. And I'm actually going to duplicate it as well so that I can move it over to the back. I'm going to stop this again. I'm going to go ahead and stop my pause. I just moved part of that over. If I want to, I could go ahead and I could duplicate this path just for the heck of it. Okay, so I have a duplicate of the outline shape of the phone. And I could go ahead here and I'm going to go back to my artboards, make sure that the back is selected, which it is, and go back to layers, make sure that this path is selected, and then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that it's moved over like so. Wrong one. Let me go back again. That's not what I wanted to duplicate. So I was fine. I shouldn't have duplicated that after all. That was the wrong layer. That's going to be used for a clipping path later on. Oh man. Okie doke. So the next thing that I want to do is to move the compound path up here. This gets so convoluted, it's crazy. And I want to move it to the front. Okay, so I've got this, and I've got the compound path in here. And that's what that is. Okie doke. So I've got that moved into the front. The next step is that we're going to practice pasting layers, and there's different ways of doing that. So again, with the making sure that I have the phone back selected. Okay. Close that, go to layers, and make sure that's visible. But what I want to do is I'm going to select this menu item here. And I'm just going to make sure that the whole thing is selected in this. So if it isn't initially selected, just hit Command A to select all. And hit Command C for copy. And then we can go back to our other file. like so, and just hit Command V for paste, and it pastes it right in there, just the way you need it. Okay. So it's in a separate artboard, all set to go. So the next thing that I want to do is, again, we're going to move some more stuff again. I'm going to take a text and the background here, and I'm going to move those inside the phone content. No, the main, let's see. Is it the phone content or main content? I'm not going to hard time seeing here. Inside the main menu. And that's where I did from before. So we don't have, where did the main menu go? That's what this should have been, is renamed main menu. So I'm going to rename it main. That's what that should have been renamed. So now what I want to do is I want to take the text and this background that I just created, and I'm going to move them inside main menu. Like so. Is it getting complicated enough for you? It is for me. It's this horrible jigsaw puzzle that they made for us that we're trying to reconstruct from, and go backwards with all of it. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to change, one of the things that we could do is we can change layer order. And one of the things that I forgot to do, to tell you about, is that when you paste, you want to make sure that paste remembers layers when you do that. If it doesn't do that, it could really change the order of everything. And that's not what you want. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take our main menu here and we're going to move it over. Okay. So I'll go ahead and I'll move it over. Like so, I'm going to hold down the Shift key. And move it down a little bit. If I have to nudge it. And you'll notice that it's invisible because the main menu is at the bottom. Okay. So if I want to take all of the content and I want to invert it, then what I need to do is I need to either just take the main menu and move it to the top, or in this particular case, what they want us to do is we want to take, let's go ahead now. Let's close this. And I want to take these three elements. I'm going to select this one, hold down the Shift key, this one, and this one, and I want to reverse the order of them. So to do that, I can click here in the little sub menu over here, the flyout menu, and I can select reverse order. And now that brings both this little panel here and these to the top. And it puts the others in their correct location. You could have either dragged those by hand, or you really could have, if you were thinking, I think, correctly, when you're designing this, you would have thought of, would have been thinking of the correct order all along, not trying to do this kind of back-asswards, pardon my French. Okay, so we've got those in the correct order now. We've changed the layer order. I think I'm doing this correct now. One of the last things that they want us to do is that we're going to apply attributes to this main menu here. And if you recall from yesterday, I said that if we look at these little buttons here, These really are your target layers and have to do with appearance. So if I select the main menu's appearance, then I can change the opacity of it. And I'm going to change the opacity to 75%. And remember that if you target the entire layer, the whole layer will be affected. If you target a specific element, then just that element will be affected. Now, if we look at the main menu, let's say I wanted just the background to be targeted and not the text, because you'll notice that the text is somewhat grayed out. I can take that target and I can move it so that it just affects the background. And now you'll notice that the text itself is solid. You know, it's opaque, but the background is somewhat transparent. So, you know, it is transparent it's, you know, by just a little bit, so you can see through it. Okie doke. So the next thing that we want to do, and the last thing we want to do on here, is we're going to take and we're going to move some elements here. And we want to, we're going to select, let's see. I want to take from the phone content. Okay. I'm going to look at the design content. And I want to take, no, maybe it's from the phone body. Is it from the phone? I'm going to pause this again. So hold on. Yes, I was correct. It's this path down here. This is what we're going, they don't explain to you. This is going to be the clipping path. So what I want to do is I want to click and drag and move this all the way to the top here of phone content. And now if I select phone content, since I'm using this as a clipping path, if I select this little button right here, now watch what happens to the photograph in my illustration. It gets cut away and it's put inside there, but they don't explain that very well. So that's what I want to do. I used this the other day and I'm going to do this again. So let's click here. Let me bring that back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this path and I'm going to take the photograph or the image and I'm going to shift click, select that. Okay, and I'm going to bring them over to the right, just so you can see what's going on here. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and duplicate them. So, okay. So hidden here, and we'll go ahead and we'll use, you know, hit Command Y so we can see what's going on here. Here's this little box that we want to use to contain all of our elements. And we want to make sure that this image here is hidden. So if I take both of these elements, and I'm going to use a slightly different way, I'm going to go ahead and select the Shift key, select both of them. And remember that whatever you use as a clipping mask has to be on the very top of whatever it is that you want to mask. So I'm going to hit Command Y to show that I have both of those selected. And now I can go to Object, Clipping Mask, Make. And it puts it, and it contains it within that little box. Now that little rectangle didn't have any attributes to begin with. There was no color or width determined for the stroke, and there was no fill. But as I demonstrated yesterday, those attributes go away when you create a clipping path. On the other hand, what if I wanted, you know, a colored background here? Then it would be better to make the rectangle and say paste inside, or, you know, to draw in, use the draw inside feature. And that would work just as well. So now I can go ahead here and let's go back again. It's, there's that clipping group, and I'm gonna remove that clipping group right here. That's what I just did, I just removed it. So now I have my path again. And we can select the top of the layer, and then I'll go ahead and I'll create clipping group or clipping mask again. So clipping masks are a way of making stencils and hiding certain parts of elements and allowing others to reveal. As I showed you the other day, I could, take a, it doesn't matter what the shape is. So to kind of finish this up, this is the end of this part of the exercise. And again, it's so convoluted and complicated. It's probably the worst lesson that we've done so far that they've written, because it's done backwards. As I said, normally as you're building your illustration, that's when you begin to add layers, you begin to add sub-layers, you organize as you're building your illustration, not backwards. But they have shown you all the different elements, but they could have done that by building an illustration rather than build one and then try to reorganize it later. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and create a new.
Could we also switch the interpreters?
What's that?
Could we switch the interpreters?
Sure.
Thank you.
So Bernice, yeah, you're highlighted now. So I'm gonna go ahead and create a new file. Again, just to show you the difference, because clipping masks or to draw inside are very powerful features, I think, because they keep the integrity or the elements intact, but allow you to hide or reveal just portions of them. So I'm going to create a brand new layer here, or a new file. There we go. And I'm going to show you the difference between the two. I'm going to go ahead and create a star here, like so. And I'm going to flip it. And I'm going to make the fill. Let's see. Let's go ahead and take the stroke and make it a little bit fatter just so you can see what's going on here. And then I'm going to go ahead and take the fill and let's make it orange. Kind of a deep red. And I'm going to go ahead and make a copy of it because these are going to be our, I'll make one a clipping mask and the other one I'm going to select draw inside. Okay, so let's start by just creating a simple circle. Let's see. Like so, and I'm going to change, just for the heck of it, I'm going to change the stroke to none, and I'm going to change the fill to the bright yellow. Okay. Now what I can do is I can, if I want to draw inside this shape, I want to put the circle inside the shape. I can select the shape. First, make a copy of this. So I'm going to go ahead and Command C for copy. Now it's on the clipboard. I can select the star. And now down at the bottom here of our toolbar, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say draw inside. And again, notice how the little bounding box changes around it. And now I can go ahead and I can edit and say paste. And it pastes it inside that. Now, you don't know it's inside that until you select it, okay? And you see that you've selected this all as a group. If I double click, it takes me inside that. And notice how I can hide part of that circle contained inside the star. At the same time, the attributes of the star remain intact. I have a deep or bright orange fill, and I have a black stroke. So that I think is the ideal way to work for in many instances when you're building your illustration. Now, a different way of doing that, let's go back out of here, is this is my star, and then I'm going to put, let's go ahead and take the same circle and make a copy of it. Now I got to make sure the order of this because the star needs to be directly on top of this. And I want the circle to be inside the star. And this is kind of an old way of doing this. So I'm going to go back to layers, and I'm going to go in here. So this is a good way to see what we've got here. So there's our clipping group, the one that we created over here. Here's the ellipse that's selected, and it needs to be directly beneath that path. Okay, so I moved it down that way. I could have used command left bracket, right bracket to move them up and down. I can say send to back. I can do all sorts of stuff, but it's easier with the layers panel just to simply move that. Now I can select both of these. Okay, now I can't say make clipping mask from the layers panel, but I can go to object and I can say clipping mask, make. And when I do that, notice that the orange and the black go away. But again, I create, again, it reads the same in the layers panel. They are both clipping groups. So now when I select this, I can go back in here, and if I want, I can use the group selection tool. I can double click to go inside the container of that group, or I can select, let's deselect everything. Maybe I just want to select, let me look at it in outline form, Command Y. And I want to select just the circle itself, and I want to move it up or, oh, come on. Got to select, move right on top of it, or I need to select it from here. There we go. So maybe I want to move it up here, and maybe I want to change its size a little bit. So I'll change the scale of it, like so. Okay, now let's deselect, and let's go back to Command Y. So now it looks kind of strange, but you know, that might be a desired result too, that maybe you want the solid circle, but you want to clip parts of it away, and you're going to do that with the star shape to do that, so that it only reveals certain, you know, aspects of it contained within that, but all the other attributes go away. So they are both clipping paths or clipping groups, but notice how they behave differently. That's the point that I wanted to make. As I also have said before a couple of times, is that it's really rare that I use sub-layers. I use groups instead. But in some instances, if you find that sub-layers were a better way to go, then that's perfectly okay. It's entirely up to you, but as I said, you're going to start with a few basic layers. And if you use the guidelines that I told you about yesterday, saying that maybe if you're using a template, then that's always at the very back. That's at the bottom of your layers, and that's going to be locked and grayed out. So if you're using one of your own drawings or a photograph as a guide, then that will be in a template layer at the bottom. And then on top of that, at the very top, if you need guidelines, then maybe I would have another layer for guidelines to isolate those so that I can hide or reveal or automatically lock them as I need them. And I can also have, in addition to that, I could have my drawing layer. I could also have, if I have text and I want to isolate the text, because text will be on top of everything, that I could put the text on a separate layer. Those are basically how I organize my designs and illustrations. So that's pretty much all I have to say for today, unless you guys, I hope I haven't confused you too much with this, but don't know what else to say. I think the book is kind of wonky the way that they did the lesson, but that's what we have, right? So next week, we'll have our critique of your skateboard decks. We'll work on lesson 11 and 12. And then I will give you options for doing the final assignment element. It's going to be a bit more open-ended. You'll have a number of different assignments to choose from. Do any of you have any questions today? I'm going to go ahead here and I'm going to stop sharing. And I'm going to also pause my recording. Unless you guys have something that you want to add.